It was October 15, 1994, when the Greystone family, Thomas, a stoic and tightly wound civil engineer, his cheerful wife, Eleanor, and their two children, Amy and Daniel, were last seen alive, waving to a neighbor on their quiet suburban cul-de-sac in Port Haven, Oregon. They were the perfect family to everyone who knew them, punctual churchgoers, active in the PTA, and always volunteering at local shelters. Yet when they failed to show up at Sunday service or answer their phone, no one expected that they'd already been gone, not just absent, but vanished, without a single trace left behind. The police were called after Eleanor's sister, who was scheduled to visit, found their front door locked, their dog starving in the backyard, and dinner still set at the table, as though they had been spirited away mid-meal. There were no signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle, only an eerie silence and an inexplicable absence, which led investigators to file the case as a possible voluntary disappearance, perhaps driven by financial strain, though nothing in their bank records or behavior suggested that. Over the next 10 years, the Greystone case became a local legend, whispered about at diners and schools, used as a cautionary tale for wandering too far from home, and occasionally reignited by a tip or blurry photograph that always led nowhere, until, in 2004, a routine digital audit of cold case evidence brought up a box labeled Case 021894 from a forgotten locker deep within the Port Haven PD's archives, and inside it was an undeveloped camera that had been overlooked during the original investigation. It was bagged as evidence but never processed due to backlog and departmental disarray during the mid-90s, and now, a young detective named Lena Harrow, who had grown up hearing about the Greystone children, was curious enough to send the film for expedited development. What came back changed everything. The roll of film contained a dozen family photos, seemingly ordinary, birthdays, beach trips, Amy's piano recital. But the final 3 frames were different. The family appeared frightened, sitting stiffly on their living room couch with a strange man standing behind them, his face obscured by a ski mask, and a clock in the background confirming the timestamp as the very night they vanished. Lena froze as she examined the photos, not just because of the masked man, but because of the positioning. Thomas's face, normally so composed, was pale and sweaty. Eleanor looked as though she'd been crying, and the children sat perfectly still, their smiles forced. In the final frame, the masked man was holding a handwritten sign, "We warned you once." This time, it's permanent. Suddenly, the case transformed from a presumed voluntary disappearance into a likely kidnapping and possibly murder, and Lena, now consumed with curiosity and righteous anger, began digging into the family's past, combing through Thomas's old work files, Eleanor's journal entries, and neighbors' testimonies that had long been dismissed. And it was there, in a torn notebook Eleanor had hidden beneath a floorboard and forgotten by previous search teams, that Lena uncovered cryptic phrases like "they found us again," and Thomas swore it was buried, along with a list of names, some crossed out, and one highlighted, Vernon Carr. Digging deeper into Vernon Carr's name led to a disturbing discovery. He had been Thomas's business partner in the late 80s when they worked on classified engineering projects subcontracted by the Department of Defense. And their final project involved retrofitting a decommissioned missile silo into a data storage vault for classified information. Shortly after the silo project ended, Carr vanished from the company records, and Thomas abruptly relocated his family to Port Haven. Lena now believed the Greystone disappearance was no random act, but a silencing operation tied to national secrets, and perhaps even treason. So she petitioned to reopen the case formally, contacting federal agencies, but was met with red tape and veiled threats. Still, she persisted, visiting the old silo's coordinates, now unfenced, off private land owned by a shell corporation. And after sneaking in with a drone camera, she spotted something chilling. In one underground chamber, there were signs of recent occupation, food wrappers, bedding, and among the scattered debris, a weathered family photo of the Greystones, crumpled and torn in half. Before she could investigate further, Lena was intercepted by private security and detained for trespassing, her drone confiscated. And when she was released, she found her apartment had been broken into. Only her files on the Greystone case were missing. Now fearing for her safety, but unwilling to give up, Lena leaked the photos from the recovered camera to an independent journalist, whose viral blog post forced federal hands to respond, prompting a nationwide interest in the case. Under public pressure, the FBI confirmed the existence of the silo and launched a full excavation. Inside, to the horror of all, they found a sealed room, and within it, the skeletal remains of Eleanor and the children, identified by dental records and items of clothing. And beside them, a single note in Thomas's handwriting. "I had no choice. They said one must stay behind to save the others. I made the deal. I failed." This revelation turned the case from tragic mystery to national scandal, as whistleblowers came forward, confirming that Thomas had stolen a classified prototype, something never specified, and was being hunted by a rogue element within the agency, a splinter group tasked with eliminating leaks. The deal Thomas made was to surrender himself and leave his family protected, but when he refused to hand over the prototype, they were all punished. However, Thomas's body was never found, and rumors swirled for years that he had survived, gone underground, or been taken elsewhere. And then, in 2011, a letter arrived at Detective Lena Harrow's desk with no return address. Inside was a photo of a much older Thomas standing on a remote mountain trail in South America, with a scribbled message, "Still watching. Still paying." The Greystone mystery became a national obsession, spawning documentaries, books, and films, yet no clear resolution followed. Only Lena, who now led a department of cold case investigators, believed the story wasn't finished, and every October 15th, she returned to the Greystone home, long since abandoned, and placed fresh flowers on the doorstep, hoping that one day Thomas, wherever he was, might finally come home, even if it was only in death.